All right, guys, welcome back. Let's see. So what I want to go over first is, well, go to course content and click on week 1. And once you see this video, is going to be several other videos kind of on the screen here. But I work backwards so that I can kind of make sure that I cover everything. But the first thing that I'm going to be talking about right now is developing your thesis, wherever that is. Oh, there it is, thesis rough draft. So this guy right here, writing project 1, thesis rough draft. We need to work on developing our thesis. So if you haven't already done so, I highly recommend that you watch all the other videos that are part of this week's curriculum. Now remember, I understand that this week is a lot of work, but next week it will be very little videos included. There won't be a whole lot to do next week. We just have to do this. It's kind of front loaded. We do a lot this week. That way we can catch up for the rest of the weeks, and there's not a mess to kind of do the whole semester. So rest assured, the entire semester won't be like this. Now, the first thing we need to go over is developing our thesis. Now, granted, before you do that, you need to, first of all, figure out, let me make sure, is that too high, too low? Move you guys up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so the very first thing you need to realize is that what you have here is writing project 1. Writing project 1 is just a bibliography. That is just you taking 3 sources, telling me about these 3 sources, that's it. You're not writing any kind of essay, you're not doing anything like that, but writing project 1 is a works item. For those of you that aren't familiar, first of all, I've provided you with a ton of resources on the content, the week 1 content folder. So check all the resources out. But if this is the first time you're kind of hearing about the works cited page, the works cited page is really where you just provide sources where someone can look at your essay, and if somewhere in your essay you're like, did you know that Neil Armstrong, Neil A. Look, I just saw this on Facebook. Check it out. Neil Armstrong, the guy that went to the moon, right? Neil A. You spell his name backwards? Spells alien. Uh-oh. Conspiracy. Anyways, if that is what you're saying and you took that from somewhere, let's say that I took that from Facebook. Maybe that came from Mark Zuckerberg himself. I don't know. But let's say that I took that from somewhere. I'm showing you that I took that from Facebook so that I can show you that I didn't make it up. It's not something that Mike Lee made up on his own. It's something that he found on Facebook, which really isn't a great source, but bear with me. Now, with this Facebook source, I'm showing everybody, hey, look, I'm not lying to you. I at least have somewhere where I got this. Now, the works cited page allows someone to be like, so you got that from Facebook. All right. The works cited page, they can go to that works cited page, they can look up Facebook and be like, okay, that came from whatever URL. That came from Mike Lee's webpage. That came from Mike Lee's Facebook page. That dude's lying. And so that's kind of what the purpose of the works cited page is for, is that you can look at those citations, you can look at Facebook, and then you have this piece of paper over here that has all these different citations, and you can look at them. And then you can go to that URL or that book or that magazine article, and you can read it yourself. Because the thing is when people use outside sources, they are interpreting them themselves. So while one person could look at this and be like, oh, Neil Armstrong backwards spells alien, that's a conspiracy. Another person can look at it and be like, huh, that's a neat coincidence, and then no one would ever think anything different. It's all about the interpretation. Well, that's what the works cited does. It provides the person, the reader, a place where they can go to double check you as the author. Make sure you're not lying. Make sure you're not making stuff up. Make sure you're a respectable individual who's not just kind of bending the rules a little bit. Anyways, why were we talking about this? Oh yeah, so the first thing you have to do is realize that when you're creating your thesis, you need a topic that's going to work for writing project 1, which is just a works cited, but also, preferably, one that can also go with writing project 2. Now, what is writing project 2? Well, without getting all into the writing project 2. Writing project 2 is going to start in week 3. So you got 2 weeks to kind of think about this. But for right now, you need a topic that you can use for your works cited page, for your annotated bibliography. Because if you use a different topic for writing project 1 and writing project 2, you have to find new sources. If you have the same topic, you can trim down a whole lot of work by just using the same sources. It would save you well, basically a whole works cited page. And finding sources would save you all that time. So let me erase here. Let me get my eraser. Let's talk about writing project 2 for a second. Writing project 2 is what we call causal analysis, meaning you look at two things, an X and a Y variable. Now it sounds all confusing, I know. But really what you're looking at is you're looking at an event in someone's life. That's what we're going to call the Y. The X is what causes that event. So essentially it's called a cause and effect paper. That's what writing project 2 is. The thing is that your topic for writing project 1 and 2, they have to be about an issue. Preferably the same issue, so you don't have to change topics. But let's say we went with, somebody's doing one that I really like right now that I haven't actually heard anybody do yet, and that's always good. I like to hear new stuff, not just a bunch of different things about how racism is wrong. I think we can all agree on that. But this person's doing something on shaming on social media. Haven't heard that before. It's kind of a relatively new idea, that at least as far as essays go. So what she's saying is that her first writing project, her works cited, was all about shaming on social media. Okay? Let me get out of the way. All right. Shaming on social media. If you're not familiar with what that means, basically it's kind of like bullying, but there's a lot of, you've seen the pictures where people like hold up little pieces of paper. Most of the time I see it with like dogs, but apparently they do it with people too. You can hold up this piece of paper and the dog will say, on the piece of paper, it'll be hanging around his neck, and on the sign it'll say like, I pooped in the kitchen 3 times or something. And it's like shaming the dog because he's getting in trouble, right? Well, apparently they do it with people too. And people aren't receiving it well, probably likely with good reason. So that's her writing project 1. She really didn't have too much behind it just yet, but that's an issue. It's a social issue. That's the real criteria you have here. It has to be a social issue. That could go as far, you could do guns, you could do marijuana, you could do just about anything that it could be as small as Tommy keeps wearing dirty underwear and he won't change them. So we need him to change his underwear. It's a social problem. It's affecting you. But that's the thing. It needs to be a social issue that has in some form or fashion affected you. That could be, you could choose the O.J. Simpson trial and say, I read the book, or I watched the trial when I was younger, or whatever. It could be anything like that. But it has to be a social issue that affects you. Now for her, it was shaming on social media. She had in some form or fashion experienced shaming on the internet. Now it doesn't necessarily mean that she experienced it firsthand. She could have seen it happen to somebody else or heard about it. Something she has some kind of experience with. That's a very, very loose term. Now whenever she got to writing project 2, it was really good for her because she'd have to change topics. The writing project 2, she just had to figure out what is causing her social issue. Okay, well, her social issue was shaming on social media. So instead of just writing why, now she says, shaming, well, what causes shaming? And it uses a big question mark. That's what her whole writing project 2 paper is about. Her trying to figure out what causes shaming. So if you choose gun legislation, gun laws, and you said, what causes everybody to be disagreeing about gun laws? Well, that's what you're going to try and figure out in writing project 2. Now, long story short, you don't necessarily have to have the same topic for writing project 1 and 2. If this is getting confusing for you, choose whatever topic you want, as long as it's a social issue that you have experience with. You don't have to carry it on to writing project 2. Well, maybe, try it out for now, and if you don't like it, change it. It'll be a little bit more work, but not a whole lot. So it's completely up to you. I suggest keeping the same topic, but you don't have to. So let's go back to creating a thesis. Now, a lot of people ask, why am I creating a thesis? I'm not even writing an essay. Well, that's a good question, because the reason I have you do that is because the very top line, aside from your title, on your annotated bibliography is going to be your thesis. And the idea behind that is that way you can take your works cited, and your thesis, and then take that to writing project 2 and go for the glory. You know, whatever it is that you have, hopefully you can use it later. And the thesis is no different. So, once you have your topic, let's go ahead and work with shaming on social media. We'll use this girl's topic. So a thesis is, if you're not familiar with a thesis, is a one sentence. One sentence. You hear that one? Just one sentence. Because if you got two, then it's not a thesis statement anymore, it's a thesis statements. So we need just one thesis statement, okay? One sentence summary of your entire paper. So if you can condense your entire paper into one single sentence, just one sentence, not two, not three, but one single sentence, you can condense your entire paper into one single sentence, what would that sentence be? Now, well, but Mr. Lee, I don't know. Well, let me help you. In order to create a thesis, first of all, you got to have a topic. Pick your topic. If you haven't done so yet, figure it out. Pause the video, take a minute. We're going to use shaming on social media. A thesis has 4 parts. I remember it because of the SOAR acronym. Now, if you've had my class before, the SOAR acronym is you're going to remember it. I call it the SOAR acronym because it's 4 parts, S-O-A-R. The first part is the subject. Second part is the opinion. Then it's the action and the reason. Wow, my screen's everyone on. Okay. Subject, opinion, action, reason. Now, you have to have all of these parts together. So your subject, what is our subject? Technically, it's shaming on social media. Okay, so it's shaming. I'm just going to put as in. Shaming social media, okay? What is your opinion about that? Well, with this one, if we're just talking about shaming on social media, it's kind of implied that we think it maybe happens too much, okay? Because if you're going to start talking about something, you need a reason. Well, why? Okay, well, for lesson's sake, let's go ahead and spell it out. Why are we talking about this? Well, happens too much. We could say too much, too often. We can reword it. Can you guys see that very well? What do we got? Like a glare. There we go. That's better. All right. So too much. Stop it. All right. Well, bear with me. So the action then is going to be an action word that you need. It could be pretty much any verb. And I'll come back to that when we get there. Now the reason. Why are we talking about this? Sure, it happens too much, but so what? What does that do? Is that a problem? Is that, it happens too much? I'm assuming it's a problem, but what is that problem exactly? Well, let's say that it's damaging young women's body image. BI, body image. I ran out of room. I felt like I was. And so, these are the 4 parts. Our subject, shaming on social media. And our opinion, it happens too often. Action verb, we haven't come up with one yet. We will. And reason, because it's damaging women's body image. Now, I'm going to give you what I call a stock phrase. Think of it like a stock car. If you get a car that comes with stock parts, that's the parts that everybody gets. Okay, you can change out those parts. You can get stock. You can get aftermarket your tires. You can get aftermarket rims. You can get aftermarket exhaust. And if you're not familiar with cars, just think of it like a uniform. Like you can get uniforms and you can add parts to it, or you can change out parts. Like if I wanted to, my uniform, I guess you could say, is a dress shirt and slacks. I could change the color. This is my stock uniform. I could change it to a green. I could change it to a red. I'm going to give you a stock sentence that you can take away from, you can add to it, you can change, but it helps you get started. And if you can get started with a thesis, then you can take the whole thing and build it into whatever you want. So bear with me. You're not going to like the first sentence. Nobody ever does. But that's the thing. You can change it. You can do whatever you want with it. So This is how I start off all my theses. That is a technical term, theses. So, let's see. I started off with the purpose of this essay is to, okay, can you guys see that? Perfect. The purpose of this essay is to. It is explicitly stated, because the thesis, remember, it's a summary of the entire paper. What's the purpose of your paper? What are you writing a paper for? Well, granted, because I'm asking you to, so you can get a good grade, right? Whatever. But let's pretend for a minute that that's not happening. Let's pretend for a second that you're actually writing this because you have something to say, which is ideally why anyone writes anything, because they have something to say that they want to share with people. So let's pretend for a second you're taking some motivation to kind of write this paper on your own, and you have a passion for whatever it is you're writing. In this case, shaming on social media. The purpose of this essay, tell me what the purpose is. Well, use these guys. You got them. Go ahead and use them. The purpose of this essay is to blank. So this is where your action word is going to go. We don't have one yet, but that's where it's going to go. Is going to blank, blank. The second blank is going to be your subject and opinion in order to blank. And that's your reason. So you have this stock phrase, and now you can go in, you can plug in all the parts. Over here, purpose of this essay is to show, is to tell, is to emphasize, is to outline. Any word that you, what is your essay doing ultimately? Are you discussing something? Are you enlightening us about something? Are you emphasizing? Are you showing us something? Are you presenting something? Any word that you can fit in there can fit in there. I know it's mind-blowing, but literally any word you can fit in there. You could say, you could use the word run. The purpose of this essay is to run shaming of social media. From a sentence perspective, it still makes sense. Well, it doesn't really make sense, but the word fits. So what I'm trying to show you is, let's go with the word, what are we talking about? I'm going to go with identify. Okay? So, the purpose of this essay is to identify, so that's the word I just wrote in right there. That's one of the words I used in my SOAR acronym. The purpose of this essay is to identify what? Is to identify that shaming on social media, because you fill in your subject and your opinion. So, the purpose of this essay is to identify that shaming on social media happens too often in order to, now this is where it kind of gets sketchy. This phrase right here, you can change this to kind of fit with the sentence that you're creating, because it's going to be organic. By organic, it's going to kind of take on a life of its own. As you write, and if you haven't written before, you're going to find out that the more you write, the more the words take on a life of their own. And I'm sure you probably heard that, even if you don't write, because it's true. As you start to write, you'll realize that the words kind of mold themselves, because if you're trying to say something, you can't say it with certain words. You have to you can only choose words that you have the option of using. So it's not appropriate for you to start one sentence in English and then kind of roll into Spanish. It doesn't work that way. Same idea in English. You can start off with a couple words, but as you start going, some words just don't fit. So you have to change them. Remember, you take out the parts, you take parts away from that stock sentence, and you start adding more parts in. So now, we have the purpose of this essay is to identify that shaming on social media happens too often. And so instead of saying in order to, I'm going to replace that with the word because. Basically saying, why are we doing this? Why are we identifying that this happens too often? Well, we're doing that because it's damaging women's body image. And I'm abbreviating again because I ran out of space. But from there, now we have our full thesis. The purpose of this essay, and I'm trying to read it from your perspective. Purpose of this essay is to identify that shaming, that's SH, I abbreviated, shaming on social media, SM. The purpose of this essay is to identify that wow, that's a good thesis. Purpose of this essay is to identify that shaming on social media happens too often because it damages women's body image. Now that can get kind of, wow, man, my eyes are watering. That can get kind of ambiguous because you can't quite figure out who's talking, what you're talking about at the end here. So you could easily move the sentence around or reword it. But the thing is you have the base for a thesis sentence here. You may not like it completely, but that's the thing about a stock car or a stock uniform or a stock sentence. You can take pieces away, you can add pieces to it, you can change it however you want, but at least you got something to start with. Now, your assignment, if you look back, let's take a look back. All right, your assignment, the writing project 1, thesis rough draft. Use this assignment block to submit the rough draft of your thesis statement. So with this, sorry, I put my markers away. You click on this guy and you scroll down. Now you have one of two options. You can type in your thesis here. So you could say the purpose of this essay is to identify that shaming on social media happens too often because it is damaging women's body image. Okay, that would be a fine thesis. Now, you can reword it, you can change it. We'll talk more about that when we get to the next writing project, but for now, we just want to get something started so that we can have some practice. So practice with this, play with it. This would be, you would get 100% for this, but I would also give you 100% if you changed it. The thing is that if you want to ensure that you're getting that 100%, just make sure you have all the parts. Make sure you have a subject, you have an opinion, you have an action word, and you have a reason for doing whatever it is you're doing. And overall, just make sure it's clear what the purpose of your essay is, because after all, this is a summary of your entire essay. If the summary doesn't tell us why you're doing it, then the paper probably doesn't tell us why you're doing it. So anyways, you can either type it in there. If you want, you can open up a Word document, and then you can browse your computer and submit it that way. But either way, you type it in there or browse and attach and hit submit, and then you would be done. I'm not going to do it, though, because it'll screw everything up. If I'm the teacher trying to submit stuff, it'll, the world will end. The world will end. All right. So that is the thesis. Again, if you have any questions, Skype me, text me, call me, all that good stuff. If you need anything else, feel free to ask. But other than that, I'm going to continue making some more videos. And I'm going to give, every week I'll have an outline video that'll outline all the assignments, which I'll basically briefly go over those again, but very briefly, not in depth. And what else? There's the intro. Oh, and then I'll also go over the Writing Project 1 guidelines with you. So that's going to be important. So make sure you watch all the videos, especially the ones with me in them, because that means if I'm doing the video, that means I'm teaching you something, and it's probably going to be important for the assignment. So anyways, have a good night, guys. Have a good week. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Have a good one.